So, friends, what has been happening on Article 370? Four former chief ministers of Jammu and Kashmir meet the Prime Minister of India. The so-called Gupkar gang, they met the Prime Minister of India. So there are multiple versions floating. I would first give you some of the versions, then I will give you my opinion. And I will obviously ask you your opinion also. One version was it's an absolute U-turn, that people you had jailed, people who were variously being described as anti-national, anti-Indians, not having the best interest of India in their heart, etc., by large number of people, including some with very strong ties to BJP, are suddenly people whom you need for democracy in Jammu and Kashmir. So that is one question. The other question is, if you have to have democracy in Jammu Kashmir, do you need to have a consultative process for that, for it to succeed? That's the other question. So is this statesmanship to have called them after you have abrogated 370? Or is it a step back? Is it a U-turn, or is it a way forward after you have done something? These were the two big questions in people's mind. These are two broad questions in people's mind. And these are not being asked by the leftist or others. These have been asked by people who can broadly be called as completely anti-appeasement, completely anti the Congress mindset of minorities have the first right on natural resources. Those sort of people also have been speaking throughout the day on that issue. I saw a few tweets like that. One of them I did tweet also, that it's a legitimate question. The answer to that question lies in the hands of all of you. But one of the questions, let me put on Twitter, one of the questions which I felt was a legitimate question, and I did tweet that, was, one second, yeah, that why were Kashmiri Hindus, why were Kashmiri Pandits specifically not called? And this is a question by Aarti Tikku, where she said, today it feels, this is a question. Let's say, today she says, today it feels like a cruel joke when those politicians responsible for our misery. Who were the politicians there? The Abdullahs, the Muftis, right? And some other, 14 in total. It feels like a cruel joke when those politicians responsible for our misery and suffering are being heard by the BJP government, but none among displaced Kashmiri Hindus Pandits. Why is Indian state going back to being a confused state? Why are you crawling backwards? Why? That's a question. Whether that is what is happening or whether that is not happening is the question. That is what we are debating here, right? That why were the people who lost their homes not a part of that meeting? Are they not vital stakeholders? Courts refuse to hear their petitions, saying it's too late. Too many years have passed. Will the government not give them a space on the table when it is deciding the fate of what form of election will happen in Jammu Kashmir? To that extent, it's a fully legitimate question. I endorse part of it. Do I endorse the second part, that the state is crawling or bending backwards? I don't endorse that part. So let me put it this way. I endorse the part that Kashmir, the displaced Hindus, Pandits, Sikhs, etc. should have been a part of the meeting. I endorse that part. Why should they not be part of the meeting? Why? If they are not part of the meeting, then this entire thing will not lead to any sort of justice. If you are not even heard, how can you expect justice? If you are not even given representation, how can you expect justice? So on that, I fully agree with the question. I don't agree with the second part. Is it bending over backwards? The reason I don't agree, I will discuss in the end. So a statement can have multiple parts. One part I agree, the bending backward part I don't agree, and I'll tell you why. Because it's too early to say. Let me deal with it right now. That will be decided in how the next few months unfold. That will be decided. Now you can believe it is not bending over backwards because you may believe that PM Modi will not do such a backward turn. That is it will make no political sense. B, it will make no sense to further add salt to the injuries. But on the other hand, are various pressures working, not working? So I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what the future will do, right? But the judgment now, the question is open. That is the Indian government being confused? No, because I have one question. So many debates, so many people had called various names to the Abdullahs when they were jailed, to Mufti when she was jailed. People had called various names. Do you remember those debates? From BJP spokespeople, from BJP ecosystem people. If you call them those names, and you can find out clips, I did not do the time-consuming task of what Abdullahs have been called and what Mufti has been called by BJP spokespeople, by BJP elected people also. I didn't waste my time. But we all remember that because I was also part of those debates. Then suddenly, if you need them for democracy there, then why were those names being called? That's a question which has to be. Right? Let me ask a second point. Okay, let me take some question. Sir, some message in social media. See, please understand this. They will always blame you for atrocities which happened on you. Do not go by social media rumors. Do not go by social media bullshit. Things have to be fact-based. And that is why I am doing this. They are legitimate questions. There is legitimate pain at Kashmiri Pandits being excluded from that gathering. There is a legitimate pain. And I am discussing that. But whether the government has crawled backward, I'm just saying there is a question mark now. Let us see. If the government goes backwards, I will come and say they have gone backward. Why won't I say that? And you will also say that they have gone backward. But I am leaving it at a question mark right now. Till 5 days ago, there was not even a question mark. There was no question mark 5 days ago. Today, there's a question mark. That question mark has to be answered now. Let's see how it will be answered. And these are few things which I believe it has to be answered. First, I want to show you my view. If you are joining for the first time, please subscribe to the channel and join live, and I will show you one of my views from 2018. Consistency. My view from 2018, published in Pioneer. Written view, I published an article. You may not have seen it on article 370. I want to show it to you. Anyway, subscribe if you are joining for the first time. This is the article I wrote. See the heading? This is way before. That was a time when the secular ecosystem used to say Article 370 is permanent, nobody can touch it. You remember what all these so-called secular leaders used to say? Nobody can touch 370. Himmat hai to chhu ke dikhao. Dam hai to karke dikhao. That is why I had said that time also, you can do it in this legal manner, because this is what the article allows, and exactly in that manner the government did it, because that is the legal manner. It was all by controlling the media and the ecosystem. They used to tell people that you can never do it. And that is why I say it is a question mark right now. Any other government had done this, I would have said it's a rollback. But because Modi Sarkar did the abolition, I am still giving them the benefit of doubt. I'm telling you my reason also. Now, this was my article. See the heading. The heading, as generally you should know, is put by the editors. Mine was a lot stronger, but let me anyway say the case against Article 370. Published, you can see the date, 21st August 2018. And let me take you to one conclusion. And I had said this, we must not allow this separatist demand. See, the problem with 370 was, it was a separatist demand. It told people that you have a separate land, that you have a separate constitution, that you have a separate flag. Psychologically, it was telling them you can aspire to be separate. Damn that thought process, which told them that you can be separate. I wrote, it is time to end the temporary nature of Article 370 through a presidential notification abrogating it. And that's what happened. Through a presidential notification abrogating it. And I wrote there also, due to the pressure of the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, the framers of the constitution had to incorporate it, but did try to safeguard India's interest by making it temporary provision, as it was never envisaged that a territory of India will be partly governed by the laws of India and not wholly governed by it. Not wholly governed by it. Do you know what was the condition of OBCs, SCs, STs there? Do you know that? Do you know what was the position of women? They married outside the state. They married non-Kashmiri, non-permanent residents, and they could not get property rights. Tell that to all these woke feminists. Women were not getting property rights, lesser rights than men in modern India. In modern India, in India of 80s, 90s, 2000s, modern India, women don't have rights. And let me just end by saying, the past application of the permit a presidential notification to abolish 370. There is never a wrong time to do the right thing. Now is the right time to abolish Article 370. So I was very clear this has to be abolished, right? But after it has been abolished, it has to serve certain purposes. If you abolish it and it doesn't serve the purpose, example, you win the 1971 war, you create Bangladesh, right? You create Bangladesh, you capture, 91,000 soldiers, and you do not solve the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. How does that work, man? That you don't solve Pakistan occupied Kashmir issue. How does that work? You had them by the scruff of the neck and you don't solve it. You don't take it back. Our soldiers fought so bravely. You hear some of the interviews of Sam McInshaw, general. You hear some of his interviews, how bravely they fought. And you don't do it. Unless you carry it forward, what's the point? So the abolition had to have certain points. I wrote it down. In fact, I tweeted it. No, I didn't write it down. I tweeted it. Let me show you what are the 4 or 5 points the abolition must have had. 1, rehabilitation of Kashmiri Hindus, Pandits, Sikhs, people who lost their homes. I again tell you, ask yourself, if tomorrow, unfortunately, you are thrown out of your house, how would you survive? See the pain. It's very easy, no? You all have houses, right? If tomorrow you are thrown out of your house, your parents are thrown out of their house, how would you survive? And Indian government has still not gotten them back their houses, their possessions, their properties, right? That is your duty, no? Somebody stole property from you. You have to give it back to the rightful owner. That's the law. That's the law of the land. What have you done? A. Second, as you know, I'm not going to bore your time by repeating. I have done million debates on Article 370, written articles on it, why it should go. What was the status of SCs, STs, OBC in Jammu and Kashmir? How some of them could not get buy properties in spite of living there for generations. Can you imagine? You live in a part of India for generations and you can't have the same property rights. You don't have the same property rights. Isn't that an unknown to modern world form of apartheid? That's a form of apartheid. The world had moved beyond it, right? But did you ever see media building a narrative in the newspapers on it? No, 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 no. This all happened by social media. That is why I say social media has a big impact. This all happened because of social media. Because media was very comfortable. Did you see all these people? Every day you see some extreme feminist movement or the other, right? Did you see them ever agitating that how can Jammu and Kashmir, dominated by Kashmir, have the laws which discriminate against women in such a massive manner? Did you ever see it? Did you ever see it? Ask yourself this. No, you did not. And now let me tell you, democracy is about elections. How many seats? There were some seats, 24, I think, in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, which there is no voting happening, that those are kept vacant. So effectively, Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh, the three areas, how many seats were there? 4 in Ladakh, 47 in 46 in Kashmir, and 37 in Jammu. Yeah. So what happens? Jammu has 37 seats. Kashmir has 46. The valley, very small area, basically dominated by seats. Then what happens? Obviously, the chief minister would be from there because it has 46 seats. Whosoever sweeps that becomes the chief minister. So the purpose of Article 370 abrogation, before you restore electoral democracy, because you have to restore. As I told you, I believe completely you have to have elections. I am a firmest believer in having elections. I am a firmest believer in non-violent protests because we live in a democracy. So what happens is if you sweep Jammu out of 37, you get 30 seats. You won't be the CM because there are 46 seats in Kashmir. So what is delimitation? Delimitation is when you decide what will be the boundaries of a MLA seat or an MP seat in a state, right? And that boundary, the various norms, including population norms. If you do a proper delimitation, the seats in Jammu should increase. The seats in Kashmir Valley should decrease. That is how I see a sensible delimitation happening. Once that happens, then you restore democracy. Supposing Jammu has, let's reverse it. Jammu has 48 seats or 47 seats. Kashmir has 35 seats. The valley. Leh is a separate union territory. Ladakh is a separate union territory, which you need to have because of military reasons. I think it will remain a separate union territory now. And it has suffered enough by being not getting its due under the state. So it will remain a separate union territory. So it is Jammu and Kashmir now. One way is do you make Jammu a separate state? Some people are in favor of it. I think delimitation is the better way. That's my view. That delimitation is a better way. That's the purpose, to have a discussion. So that is my view. Now, when this delimitation happens, and supposing Jammu has 50 seats and Kashmir has Yeah. Ladakh should be with the legislature. Give all rights. See, I am a person who believes states should have maximum rights. So I obviously, whatever the genuine demand of the people living in Ladakh is, that should be fulfilled. Subject to India's national security. That's only because, as you know, it is the China issues and those issues. The only national security. Otherwise, I would have said make it a. It's too small a landmass. But otherwise, I would have said land means it's too small a population mass. I would have said made it a separate state also. Right. Any part of Bharat is as invaluable as any other part of Bharat. Make it a state, but you have some national security issues. That's why. And obviously, the population would be too small for a state. So, and you will need massive central resources to go there. Also, economy, right? The center has to push resources there. So we as Indians have to ensure there are parts of India where we invest more, there are parts of India from where we get more return. That's why we are one nation, right? And that happens everywhere in the world. California, for one example, if you just take California as a country, it will be the fifth or sixth largest economy in the world, just one state in US. Right? So the taxes from that state, you can understand. The economic boom from that state, you can understand how much it helps US. That happens in every country. But anyways, coming back to the topic. Jammu, with a proper delimitation, whatever be the number, 44, 45, 48 seats, and Kashmir, obviously balancing out, have elections. Now, why this meeting is raising doubts? Which person in this meeting do you think will agree to a proper delimitation? That's the question. And that's the issue. Which person here? Okay, let me show you the photo. Let's go face by face, name by name. Obviously, BJP people will want that delimitation. I'm not debating that. Let's see the Prime Minister's account and the Prime Minister's photo. So, whom do we see? Mr. Abdullah. Do you think Mr. Abdullah Jr., because his father, Umar Abdullah, do you see him agreeing to delimitation where Jammu, after being minority seats for decades, gets a decisive say? No. Do you see Mr. Azad agreeing to that? No. Obviously, the Lieutenant Governor would. Obviously, the Prime Minister would. Obviously, the Home Minister would. Do you see Mr. Farooq Abdullah agreeing? Do you see Miss Mehbooba Mufti agreeing? I'm just talking about the front row. So that is why this, as I said, a question mark has come out on Article 370. That what was the need? You do your delimitation. That's a good question. Self-list. That's a good question. Yes, we had elections also. And what did happen after election? Kapil Mishra was on my Hindi channel, and he is doing some movement for there. And that counselor who, unfortunately, the terrorists did, you know what with him? That counselor. I'm forgetting, I think Mr. Pandit was his name. I'm actually, if somebody can please type the name. So I showed you the photograph. Which one of these people? I will show you again and ask you, think your mind, apply your mind, think with your mind. Well, you obviously think with your mind. But anyways, apply your mind and answer that. Rakesh Pandita. Thank you. Thank you, Shaurya. I wanted to take the brave I wanted to take the brave person who contested elections name, Rakesh Pandita. Thank you for providing the name. That is the benefit of live. That's why I like you to join live. You know, you and me, we share our thoughts and some of the research we share. So that election proved people there. And I honestly tell you, people want democracy, people want growth. People want growth. People want democracy. Point is, this meeting has raised that question mark. And I will not be one of those who says everything is a master stroke. No. Sometimes you make errors. Sometimes there is a masterstroke. Sometimes it's a brilliant move. Sometimes it's a faux pas. Right? So, not calling Kashmiri Hindus who were displaced, I think sends a very, very unfortunate signal. That's a very unfortunate signal. In fact, as you said about Ashok Pandit, I think he also tweeted something very interesting, which I will share with you. That was also very interesting. He tweeted. We must see that also. Did you see his tweet? Okay, my battery is about to die, so let me just wrap it up fast. This Ashok Pandit tweet you should see. Was interesting tweet I saw. Yeah. I had not saved it, so you will have to give me 10 seconds. Yes, he, I think, made it his pinned tweet. Okay. That's what his tweet is. And he is a supporter of the government. So this is coming from people who are supporting the government, right? आज हम उदास हैं क्योंकि आज एक मुलाकात का दिन है. If I, it's an English channel, so anyway, today I am sad because today is a day of meeting. Mulakat Desh Drohi, that's his view. He is calling them as people who are anti-India. Mulakat, he is calling them as people who are supporting Atank. Mulakat उन लोगों के साथ है जिन्होंने हमें meetings with those people who displaced us. Those who, see, the language he's using is very strong. Today I am sad. So the language he is using is very strong. You may not agree with it. You may agree with it. That's your view. He is putting this language out in public domain as a supporter of the government because he's probably feeling sad and hurt. And then in the end, he says, don't ignore Kashmiri Hindus. So why did I put this out? This is by a person who supports the government. This is by a person who supports the government. Right? So when a person who supports the government, here he has obviously gone, I am leaving it at the mid-level of question mark, future events will tell. He has gone beyond the question mark and he is expressing his sadness, displeasure at the unfortunate pain, hurt. Right? Pain and hurt. And isn't abolition of Article 370 about providing balm to those hurting for 3 decades? And isn't it about providing balm to a sore on the body of our constitution provided by Article 370? That is the question. So in end, I would say this much. There are some very legitimate questions being asked on why this meeting took place. If after this meeting, and those questions have been raised which were not in my mind and in anybody's mind, some people have gone beyond questioning and said it is absolutely wrong. Some people have expressed their hurt and sadness. I am stopping before that. I am just leaving it at a question mark. Because if tomorrow a proper delimitation happens, and you know what is my definition of a proper delimitation. Let me take some questions. Okay. Let me finish my line and then take question. If a proper delimitation happens, Jammu gets its sensible, fair share, then no harm in the meeting. Nothing. As long as the government does what it has to do, this meeting is irrelevant. Doesn't matter. No harm, no foul. Kya gaya? Nothing went. Right? But we have to now see, because the question has been raised. One meeting, one swallow doesn't a summer make. But because of this meeting, some people have gotten hurt. Pain has been caused to some people, especially on the ground of not including Kashmiri Pandits who were displaced and their representatives. That I hope in the next meeting, the government does, because it is important for them. Okay, let me take some question. What if just an optical move to show the world democracy? Okay, what do you think? Topic on the topic. Do you think this is a well played move, Modi? As I said, that's why I said I'm leaving it a question mark. If it is an optical thing, that the democratic process is going on, then no harm. Very good. Do 20 optical meets. You have to do that. Opticals also matter in politics. Please do it. But if it is moving towards some compromise with these people, one thing is very clear. Anything these people in that room, some of them you have seen, let us see them again. Any compromise which Omar Abdullah agrees to, Ghulam Nabi Azad agrees to, Farooq Abdullah agrees to, Mehbooba Mufti agrees to, is a compromise. I don't think so. Should be done. You did not abolish Article 370 by compromise. You abolished it like the Prime Minister of India should have, decisively. You abolished it decisively. Same way you did it decisively. Same way delimitation should be decisively. Anything which these people feel comfortable compromising to, I don't see that ending well for Bharat. I don't see that. That's my opinion. So I leave you with I've given you my interpretation, my analysis of the situation. This is a very important topic. I was writing on this in 2018, before the 2019 election, and we will probably cover it in the coming days because it's too important for any rollback, any withdrawal, any compromise on this issue. Good night. Take care. Sweet dreams.